Tonight on PhillyCAM Voices, we have 3 in-studio interviews produced by the fellows in the Community Journalism Mentorship Program. The Community Journalism Mentorship Program is a 6-month-long program where participants receive training in media production and build a portfolio of journalistic video pieces produced for television. Our guests this evening are comedian Ashley Swallow and local radio journalist P.O.C. Good evening, and thank you for tuning into PhillyCAM Voices. I'm your host, Danny Wilson. Isabella Aponte sits down with Ashley Swallow, who is a teacher turned comedian taken on the scene right in her hometown of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Ashley spent 3 years educating the youth in Philadelphia when in summer of 2022, she decided to follow another passion of hers, writing and comedy. The once teacher now became a student, joining and completing a 6-week comedy class through Helium Comedy Club. She now spends her nights standing in front of the room in a whole new way, breaking rules and making jokes. As a newcomer to the comedy scene, she is finding where she fits in as a multi-hyphenate young woman in an underground, male-dominated field. Welcome to the studio, Isabella and Ashley.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you for being here, Ashley. Welcome to PhillyCAM.
Thanks for having me.
So you started your career as an educator right here in Philadelphia, and then you decided to pivot. What was the aha moment for you when you decided you wanted to pivot?
I remember I was kind of feeling like I wanted a career change, but I vividly remember reading Yes, Please by Amy Poehler, and I could feel my perspective and future changing. It kind of felt like finding a missing puzzle piece. To learn about Poehler, who has created a successful career for herself as an actor, TV writer, comedian, not to mention producer and director, it really just changed my whole life. And it kind of felt like remembering why you walked into the room, or almost like the answers in the path was kind of there for me the whole time.
Love that. I love Amy Poehler. So when you decided to kind of pivot, and this is a passion that was bringing you stability, and you studied for so long, you took loans out to get an education in it. So was there a plan, or did you just take the dive?
I think at first I definitely thought I could do both, but the more I began to learn about myself as a writer, I realized that I needed to exit the education scene. And I loved so much of Miss Swallow, and I wish I could bring her with me, but in my heart of hearts, I knew that I had to move in a different direction. And like I said, the more I learned about myself as a writer, it almost made it easier for me to say goodbye to that future I had been building and that identity that I had been working on. And I think it was a combination of 2 things. First off, I think we all can kind of address this idea of, or society's idea of what an educator looks like. So I found myself wanting to do these things, like write for groundbreaking TV shows like Mindy Kaling and Amy Poehler, and put out hysterically moving books like David Sedaris. But it was a combination of that not aligning with what the quote-unquote educator looks
it's come
like,
a long way
and
since
also
the high
that I
crime
think in my
rates
gut I knew I
of
wasn't
the
really
early
doing what was
1990s.
lighting me up. And once I kind of stepped away from the constraints of the educator, I feel like I was able to access like a whole other side of myself. It was kind of freeing in a way, and yeah, if that answers your question.
Yes, I think that's really interesting, because I was going to say teaching education is such a, it's so different than comedy. So why comedy specifically?
Yeah, so I, not to sound trite, but I'm like, I picked comedy because comedy was always right. It's what felt right to me. Comedy was always a part of my life, even when I didn't really know that the name for it. I love making people laugh, and I love laughing. It feels like one of those moments where you didn't realize everything was building together, and it always makes me think of that Henry David Thoreau quote, "It's not what it's not what you look at, or no, I'm sorry, it's not what you see, it's I'm getting it all wrong, but you guys know the quote.
Yes.
And yeah, so I just feel like stories have always been an intricate part of my life, and it's just, comedy is the lens in which I tell them from.
Right. So you've always kind of had this like interest in comedy, so it just made sense for you when that
Yeah,
was
I have always
way
been
you
an
went.
avid reader and writer, and it was like my love for writing and reading led me to teaching, which led me to creative nonfiction essays, which led me to script writing, which led me to stand-up comedy.
Yeah, and I thought another brave choice that you decided was to stay in your own hometown of Philadelphia. Like, what was that thought process of staying in Philly, which is a big city, I think, when you're from here, but in the media world or, the television world, most people think of New York City or LA. So why Philly, where you're from and where everyone kind of knows you?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I feel like taking on stand-up comedy in Philly for me was really nice because I was taking on so much new territory in very familiar spaces and places that I knew really well. But New York and LA, they have those reputations for a reason. So I always say Philadelphia is a great place to learn and practice comedy, but it almost reminds me of like a branch campus of comedy. Like if you are really serious about it and really wanting to work to the next level, you're almost working to leave the city. And it's tricky. It doesn't always go that way, but like so much in life, time and place are paramount, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, when someone can come see you and hear what you're talking about and, someone from your city. So I love that you kind of made that choice, and it must feel comfortable to start something so new where you are well versed in. Another juxtaposition of education and comedy that I saw was, research shows that teaching usually is woman dominated, and from my experience in the comedy world, it's quite male dominated, quote unquote, boys club. So how do you feel navigating that, coming from a woman-dominated field to kind of having to go up against maybe some misogyny, some patriarch really right in your face?
I definitely know what you mean, and I could see the shift in my life, not only coming from a woman-dominated career like teaching. Growing up, I grew up with 3 sisters. I went to an all-girls high school, shout out to Little Flower alum. But yeah, collaborating in a world full of men wasn't on the bingo card, but here we are. And it's not always, the same in every space that you go to, but it is frustrating when you see clubs and showcases putting women comedians in the less than desired opening spaces, or maybe just not booking them as much as their counterparts. But ultimately, it does just motivate me more and give me a little bit more fuel, so.
I love it. So, use it as motivation, kind of break through more. So, I think a lot of people have this expectation that comedy is the ability to make people laugh. However, I've been kind of following you and seeing behind the scenes, and it's so much more to it. So can you just tell me a little bit about your process before you get on stage?
Definitely. I think anyone who's maybe a stranger to the comedy world, like, you're so funny, you should get on stage and tell jokes. And that is a huge part of it, of course. But when you're in the comedy world, you'll always hear about this tight 5. So for anyone, no matter who you are, in the initial stages of your stand-up career, your journey is to go about and get that tight 5. And you don't even realize it, but you're kind of like establishing your style and your tone and your brand. And through that, you are working on the jokes, but it's so much more about timing and practicing and editing and did that work? Should I cut it out? And repetition. But ultimately, a lot of writing. And I think people don't always factor that part in.
I love to see the writing process behind it. I think that was one of my favorite parts, and I felt really privileged to see behind the scenes because most people just see you on stage and think the final product is it, but you do a lot of work before
I
that.
practice a lot when I'm at home. If I'm doing an 8-minute show, I'll set the timer for 8 minutes. Sometimes I'll plan for interruptions. And yeah, timing is everything.
Yeah, so as we wrap up, of course, I want to get to know Ashley as a comedian. Where can I come find you? Where can I see your work?
So I love to go to Fergie's. They have a great open mic right on Sansom Street on Sunday night, the Party Zone. Monday is another great night for open mics. I love to go to the Saint right on Girard. Tuesday, we have the Grape Group in Manayunk. And Wednesday, there are so many different options on Wednesday, but I do want to give a shout out to JJ Malin's Lovable Monsters Showcase. That's a great one too.
Okay, yeah, so you're going to have to find you at a bar, at open mic at a bar in the city.
Yes, and the thing is, before I got into the comedy scene, I didn't know about the comedy world, but once you start learning about it and kind of indulging in it, it's almost everywhere in this city. It's kind of crazy.
Love that. Not as underground as you think.
No, not as underground as you would think.
Thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure.
Oh my God, thanks for having me.
For our next interview, Kennedy Scurry talks to radio host and media correspondent P.O.C., whose work focuses on topics that elevate the city. She covers topics of importance for Philadelphia youth and adults, along with covering community events that bring people together. Welcome to the studio, Kennedy and P.O.C.
All right, hey everybody, it's Kennedy Scurry, and I'm back on PhillyCAM with my girl P.O.C.
What's up, sis? How you feeling?
I'm doing great. How are you tonight?
I'm good. You know, like I was saying, I'm excited that we finally get a chance to sit down and talk, you know, get the chance to vibe and be on mic and do stuff that we love to do.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So tell us all how you guys started with journalism.
No doubt. Revive is alive. But yeah, so I'm an internship baby, pretty much. So I got an internship at WRD, which is a full circle moment because I'm now a current host at WRD. So I was under Solomon Jones, who is still the current morning host, Wake Up with Word. And I didn't necessarily get the job, but I was able to solidify some resources and relationships where I was able to tap into the world of internet radio. And from there, Revive just took off, and we've been alive ever since for the past 6 years.
That's good. So
Yeah.
how
does your
what have you
organization
learned from
work
media,
within
working
the
on your
community?
own business and working with a paper, also being a radio host? How has that been for you?
I've learned a lot. A lot of the things that I do is very self-taught. A lot of the things that I do, blood, sweat, and tears. You know, I'm really boots on the ground, so grassroots with it. So I didn't go to journalism school. You know, I don't have a journalism degree. So a lot of the things that we're doing with Revive Radio and Revive Media is strictly for from passion, love,
Okay.
and you know the amount of overwhelming support that we receive from our listeners, supporters, and people who just really bang with us. You know what I mean? Because of the work that we're doing. So I learn a lot every day, and you know I make sure that I open my mouth when I need help for sure. Now in this part of my career, yeah.
I love that. So tell us about the name
Tell me about
POC.
COVID
How did you come
conquerors
up with that? What
and-
does it mean?
I'm not even gonna take credit for it. Someone actually gave it to me in the middle of a conversation. Yeah, just like one we having right now. We were having an open conversation, and you know we were talking about a topic, and I went in. You know, I just you know
Okay.
doing my thing, and he was like, "Yeah, that's proof of consciousness right there. That's proof of consciousness." So just pretty much shouting
like
out
that.
like that. What I was saying is just proof that I was you know what I'm talking about. But when he said it, I embodied it. I'm like, yeah, that is me. I am
Okay.
proof of consciousness. I am. So I kind of just, you know, made it an acronym instead of just, you know, proof of consciousness. Every time somebody I introduce myself or somebody speaks to me, I just broke it down to POC, and then people broke it down to POC. So it's like it go hand in hand, you know. So I am POC. POC is me. So yeah, I embodied that probably about 6, 7 years ago too, as well.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. So tell us about the summertime. How is that for you? Also, what is it like doing journalism in Philadelphia? Like waking up day to day, being motivated by that.
Your first question, my summer this year in 2023, it was a roller coaster for sure. You know what I mean? In a space where I'm learning to do more in my career. I was able to talk on a lot of different panels. I went to some journalism conferences. I did a lot this summer, truly. You know, I tapped in with the artist community a lot more this summer. I hosted some festivals, hosted some, you know, parties and stages. So I did a lot this summer, honestly.
good.
I can't wait to sit back and reflect on it come December, you know, when you do that end of the year wrap up. But I definitely say I did a lot. And then as far as being a journalist in the city of Philadelphia, it is a very lovable but also doggy dog type of world. You know what I mean? You really have to love what you do. You really have to do the work. Or just like any other career in Philadelphia, they eat you up and spit you right out. So I don't think journalism is any different. I think that we all live in bubbles. You know what I mean? So there's some people who particularly follow a certain beat and stick to that beat, whereas though I am very open and I'm very heavily involved with the community. So I can talk about a lot of different things. I can meet people where they are to spark these conversations. And people look look at us, as Revive Radio, Revive Media,
Right.
as a decent host. I mean, not host, just like resource of hosting, as far as like the things that we are able to be, um, things that we can present and get done, I should say.
Okay.
Yeah.
I heard you mention about the dog eat dog part, which I can definitely relate to being a journalist myself. So how do you navigate through those up and downs, knowing that can happen to you, no matter how big you can get or how far you can go in the city?
Yeah,
How do
no
you
doubt.
navigate through that?
And when I say that, I'm not saying it like if it's just a Philadelphia thing. I
Right.
think that, we live in a time where content creators and people who are influencers can also sit in the seat like we are sitting in right now and call themselves a journalist,
Right.
or call themselves a media correspondent. But they haven't really put in the work or the time to hone in on the craft that a lot of
Yes.
people like myself would say.
Mhm.
So we have a large box, you know what I mean, when it comes to saying I'm a content creator and I'm a journalist, and what does that look like? I would say in 2023, but for people who have true passion behind it, this is something that they love, like literally love to do as far as storytelling, making sure that people have the breaking news, the daily news, that news and information that's for you and about you, reporting on community stories that need to be told, making sure platforms and voices are aligned with community agendas and stuff like that. It's a whole different ball game,
Right.
you know what I mean. But when you think about just the box or the scope of media content, stuff like that, now it's becoming bigger than what it needs to be.
Okay.
So specifically in Philadelphia, how I deal with it is I stay authentic to myself. I don't
Yes.
change. I don't switch up. I'm an authentic person, and just like how we met. We met at an event, we kicked it, we talked, and from there
Yep.
it was like, how can I help you, how can you help me, and it was an
Mhm.
even exchange of like um, what we can do for each other in an innovative way.
Mhm.
I knew you were looking for something, particularly as I would call you a young journalist,
Yes.
getting
Thank
out
you.
there,
Mhm.
and I knew that I had an outlet that I can help you get that start.
Mhm.
So just being able to pass it back down, just like somebody passed it back down to me, I didn't get here on my own.
Right.
So just the same, keeping the same kind of focus, love, and energy that was given to me, give it right back. So I
I
feel like that's how
appreciate
I'm
that.
able to navigate a little bit in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what would you say is your most monumental moment within your career, especially working in the city? Because I know you've done a lot, but what has been your biggest moment?
My biggest moment, that's tough. I would say like currently right now, like I said, over the past couple months this summer, I went to some journalism conferences, and my first time attending in a BJ, I was able to be a cohort leader. I was able to
Okay.
establish my own cohort through the Night Linfest Foundation. So me being able to have that partnership and being able to create an entire cohort and be able to bring other non-traditional journalists and a student journalist as well to Birmingham, Alabama this year to celebrate just the 60th anniversary in general of the civil rights movement, but to see that, to be a part of that in Birmingham, Alabama, and to see tens of thousands of black journalists in one room at the
Mhm.
same time, yeah, that was like top tier for me this year. Yeah,
I love that. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah,
What can we expect from Revive coming up in the new year? And also, what is your greatest advice for journalists, young journalists?
yeah. Coming up in the new year, just continue to expect more pressure, more gas. When I say like gas, I mean like foot on necks.
Mhm.
Because we are still independent and we want to be funded just as well as legacy into institutions. So when it
Yes.
comes down to the grassroots institutions, we want to be respected the same way. So I plan on putting more pressure on the city of Philadelphia to respect more grassroots leaders such as myself, and
Mhm.
also voices such as myself, because the amount of work that we're doing, and the
Yes.
retention that we're also getting as well.
Okay. Well, I want to say thank you for coming on. It was so great talking with you.
No
I
doubt.
can't wait to see more of you. Can't
No,
wait to see more of Revive. But,
no
we're going to get busy this year.
no
So
doubt.
it
Can I tell
was
people
great.
how they can find me and stuff?
Of course, yeah, where can
No
they
doubt.
find
Make sure
you?
y'all keep it locked to Revive Radio, Revive Media. We're live 365, 24/7, AM to the PM on reviveisalive.com. You can find more about us on our social sites, all at Revive_POC. Exclusive contents, interviews, all that good stuff on YouTube at the same social site at Revive_POC. But yeah, stay locked. Keep us in the dial.
I loved it.
Don't get at
Up next, we have a segment by Jamie Oliver and Laura Deutsch covering the November 2nd protest for a ceasefire in Palestine, which was held at 30th Street Station. Let's take a look.
Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now!
We're inside 30th Street Station, where hundreds of faith leaders and protesters are demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. Let's go and talk to some of them. Follow me.
We're here to call for a ceasefire. We are an interfaith, multiracial coalition of Jews, pastors, Christian, Muslims, Palestinians, Israelis, and Americans, and we're here to demand that President Biden and the U.S. Congress insist on a ceasefire for the Israeli government against the people of Gaza.
What brought you out?
I'm an American Israeli. I'm dual citizenship. I'm Jewish. And I believe that what is happening right now is harming my security, is harming my family's security, is harming my friends' security, that everyone, whether they are in Gaza City or the south of Israel, whether they are in Ramallah or Haifa, whether they are in Jaffa or in Khan Yunis, deserves to live in freedom, in safety, and in equality. And a call for a ceasefire is a call for all of us. It is a call for all of us to be safe, all of us to be equal, and all of us to be free.
I lived in Palestine in 1986 to 87, and even then it was like being in a teapot that was about to boil, and it has not gotten better. And I just feel devastated that we as United States citizens are aiding and abetting Netanyahu on his revenge, not even rescue of the hostages, but revenge. And I feel like the consequences down the road for Israel, for Jews everywhere, for Gazans, for Palestinians are just very dire, and that we must be the sane people who take away the keys from the drunk driver.
Humanity brought us out today. As Muslims, we believe people in Gaza, Palestine are our brothers and sisters. And right now we're in the comfort of our own homes. The least we can do is be out here and support them as much as we can.
Just telling my son that, we speak together so that we can be louder and that people will hear us. And the hope is that, people do hear us and decision makers pay attention to this large display of Jews and Muslims and people, from all backgrounds coming together.
I'm here in solidarity with that and recognizing that the oppression of my people is the oppression of the Palestinian people, is the oppression of the Haitian people, is the oppression of people all over the world, and I think that's important to stand in solidarity with.
I'm Palestinian, and I'm sickened by what's been happening over the last 75 years in Palestine, specifically what's been going on for the last 27 days in Gaza. So we're here to just show the world that Gaza needs to live, Palestine deserves to be free.
I am Jewish. I was raised Zionist. I taught Hebrew school for 10 years, and then I lived in Israel with a family in the south. I was exposed to things that made me question what I'd been taught. I came back home, got a master's degree in Palestinian history. Then I spent time in Palestine living with the family in the West Bank in 2015, and I have been an advocate for Palestinian freedom for about 20 years now. I think Jews especially have a duty and a responsibility to stand up and say, not in my name. So that's why I'm here.
I'm Jewish. I was born and raised a Jew. Had my bar mitzvah at 13, and the lessons that I learned were, that what the state of Israel is doing right now is antithetical to my religion. And so to call this anti-Semitism is absurd.
In 3 weeks, Israel has killed more Palestinian children than have died in armed conflicts around the world in 3 years. I don't want my name and my taxpayer dollars to be bankrolling genocide, and that's why I'm out here today.
You stopped and you see the protest, and now you're
We
here.
heard it actually coming up from the train downstairs. Yep,
Okay.
it was really great. Tears were coming down. My family are really close to the area, so if it expands and becomes a regional war, it will be difficult for them.
what I would love to see in this conflict and just generally is a lot more education and media literacy so that we all know how to consume things better, how to accurately talk about it, and how to thoughtfully talk about it, and how to engage in dialogue. And I love to see peaceful protests because that's how we get our voice heard. It's a big part of who we are as the United States, and this is important. It's free speech.
And it's about time our government, I don't want to say our government, the U.S. government stops funding this, $30.8 billion a year for the last 40 years. Think about how many schools that could build, how many hospitals that, how much senior housing could be available.
I think other representatives should stand and call for a ceasefire. I'm an elected official myself. I would call on all our congressional representatives to support a ceasefire as well, to engineer a ceasefire, to support the return of hostages, to end the loss of life, and to seek peace immediately. Nothing will be gained by the direction of this policy. It will only lead to wider war. It will only lead to more death. And every life is sacred. Every life is sacred. So we need to move to live by that. And adopt policies by that.
And I think people of good conscience have to make sure that this can't go on without, at the very least, a disruption to everyday life and everyday business until we see a ceasefire.
And I think we're starting to see a slow tide of change. Public opinion is on our side, I believe, and Congress needs to recognize that. The United States has so much power and ability to save people. They must demand Israel ceasefire, and they can demand that because we are funding this war.
We, as Israelis, don't need more weapons, we don't need more guns, we need international involvement in bringing about first and foremost a ceasefire, and after that an end to the occupation and a just solution to the Israel-Palestine conflict.
This is Jamie Oliver. We've been here now for 2 hours. There are hundreds inside and hundreds and more outside. Thank you for joining. This is PhillyCAM Voices, Jamie Oliver, 30th Street Station, and we're out.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode. Look out in the coming months for more stories from the Community Journalism Fellows. You can also watch our show on YouTube and Roku, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We'll see you next time.